Hello, friend. Welcome to this week's episode of the Remarkable People Podcast, the Lisa DeFrank-Cole story. This week, you're going to get encouragement from Lisa when she grew up in Appalachia. She went from poverty to being a professor at a university. Now, all over the world, poverty, different words have different connotations, they have different levels. But within America, Appalachian poor is pretty poor. And she talks about how she persevered. She talks about how she used past successes to build on the future. She talks about delayed gratification, and she talks about leadership and moving forward, not just with her own life, but how she is speaking now and working towards helping other, specifically women, grow and flourish. So this episode is entertaining, encouraging, and as Lisa's talking about perseverance and staying the course even with difficulties, internet drops out. So what she do? She jumps back on her phone and we reconnect through the internet via Verizon or whatever service carrier she uses. So she practices what she preaches. This is a great episode. It's shorter than most. It's encouraging, some great quotes in it. And from there, hopefully you can take it and, like our slogan says, not just listen to great content, but do it, repeat that good each day so you can have a great life in this world and eternity to come. So right after this short commercial from our amazing affiliate, a remarkable affiliate, check out Lisa's story. And I can't wait to hear it, how it not only encouraged you, but how it changed your life for the better. Enjoy.
I'm excited to announce my all-new mattress topper. In the times we're in, I wanted to bring you the best affordable mattress topper ever. So I took my two best technologies and combined them to make the ultimate mattress topper. And now you can get it for as low as $69.98. Queen size only $99.98. It all starts with my famous MyPillow foam that provides you that overall full body support. Second is the individual comfort supports that give you an amazing custom sleep experience. It's like it's made specifically for you. The queen size alone has over 14,000 comfort supports. This is the perfect mattress topper to improve any bed. New bed, old bed, your guest beds. Get them for every bedroom in your house. Go to mypillow.com or call the number on your screen. Use your promo code to get the all-new My Mattress Topper for as low as $69.98. Queen size only $99.98. Don't delay, order today.
Warning, the interview you're about to experience has already positively changed people's lives. If applied appropriately, it can change yours too. The views expressed are those of the guest and host. The content of this podcast is not meant to be legal, financial, or medical advice. Warning, this episode may contain graphic details of the guest's life. Listener discretion is advised.
Hey, Lisa, how are you today?
Dave, I'm doing well. How are you?
Oh, I'm fantastic. Remarkable, even. I am so happy to be here with you. I just told our listeners in the intro a small bit of what to expect in today's episode. But when you're here, we're going to share your life and a bunch of truths that you've learned along the way, things that you've applied to your life to help you become a better person and have more fulfillment and joy. But if you were to guarantee somebody listening right now that if you stick with your episode, the entire half an hour, hour and a half, whatever it is, what do you guarantee they're going to walk away with? They can start applying to their life today and have, a more victorious life.
I would say it's the benefits of delayed gratification. I'll give you a lot of examples how I've experienced that in my own life. And I hope that it can be applied to the listeners in your audience.
Nice. Yeah. Delayed gratification in our society is a foreign thought, right?
Yeah. In terms of iPhones, iPads, and me, everything. Yeah, it is.
Yeah. So let's do this. Let's do something a little different. We're going to jump into your story, but let's give somebody a baseline. How would you dictionary, Merriam-Webster 101 definition of delayed gratification? How would you define that, Lisa?
In my own words, I would say it's being willing to put off the benefits of what you think you're going to get until a later time. And in my life, I'll give examples of how it took me, for example, 6 years to attain my bachelor's degree. But in the end, that it certainly pays off and has paid off now as a professor. So it's being willing, as I said, to just put off that ultimate benefit that you think you're going to get.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. You reap what you sow, work now, play later. However we phrase it, that delayed gratification is important, self-control. So let's do this. Something happened in your life, or many things happened in your life to get you to this point where delayed gratification is so important that you're actually taking time out of your life to share with people on podcasts.
Mm.
Where were you born? What was your upbringing life? What things happened? Good, bad, ugly, pretty, pretty ugly. What made you the woman you are today?
Wow, there's a lot there. And thanks for asking the question. I grew up in Appalachia, southwestern Pennsylvania, to be exact. I currently live in West Virginia. Um, and I would say that I grew up in a poor family. So I'm a first generation low income college graduate. And what that means is neither of my parents had gone to college by the time I had started college. And that's being a first generation college grad. The low income part, I think, is pretty self-explanatory. So I think, that was the first piece that was hard, and wondering what a life might be like beyond those parameters, what it might be like to have an education and to make more money than my parents did. And also growing up in a coal mining community. In southwestern Pennsylvania, we called it a patch, or a community that was owned by the coal mine, where there were mining operations literally about the length of a football field away from my backyard. So I think you can't be what you can't see. And I had a very limited view of the world. And so being the youngest in my family, there's four kids in my family, and I'm the youngest. Seeing my siblings move on and go on to college, and then it was my turn. And again, as I mentioned earlier, it took me 6 years to get my undergraduate degree. But realizing that I loved higher education, and if I could just persevere and keep my foot on the gas, that maybe, just maybe, there would be light at the end of the tunnel. And after getting a doctorate degree, I would say that that light is beaming bright at this point, because I'm a professor of leadership at West Virginia University, and hoping to spread more information about women in leadership more broadly through the research that I've done and the writing that I've done. So yeah. So in a nutshell, those were some of the highlights, some of the parts that were hard, that required some delayed gratification.
Okay. And then you had a mom and dad, you said, growing up, right?
Yes,
In the
yes.
home. Was there, how many brothers and sisters did you have?
I have two brothers and one sister, all older than me.
Okay. And
Mhm.
then when you're growing up, the mindset you're getting is delayed self-gratification and perseverance and working towards what you want. And that's seriously the opposite of what our own government's trying to teach us, what the world is trying to teach us. So when you were growing up, was that a mentality that was common and supported? Or was this something unique to you more, and were you encouraged or discouraged to have this opinion?
All of us had it, even my parents, because, and it wasn't something that was said as much as it was lived. We recognized that my parents didn't have the funds to kind of go buy us something immediately. Or if you got a hole in your pants, you weren't going to get a new pair. So you had to be very careful about whatever it was that you had, any of the items that you might have purchased, that it had to last. And my father never had a credit card. He's deceased now. He would have been in his 90s, but he believed in paying cash for things, which took a heck of a long time to save up to buy a car, for example, or a truck. And so it was, if you just keep saving and keep your eye on the ultimate goal, eventually you'll get there. And for us, we were fortunate enough, we didn't have major illnesses or things that could cause somebody a catastrophic life event, so the plan worked, cutting coupons and saving money. And, my dad was able to buy, a vehicle, or just, keep studying in school. And eventually you might get accepted to college, you might get to go. And so that's why I say it wasn't a message that they said explicitly with words, but with deeds.
Yeah. And that's more important. Actions speak louder than words, right?
I think so. Yeah.
Yeah. The Bible says the talk of the lips tendeth only to penury. Means talk's cheap. You got to do what you say. So, okay. So now what about your community? Was that the mentality, or were you guys kind of the exception?
Yeah. Again, my family, I had other family members living in this coal mining community, and I think they did things similarly, but that wasn't true of everyone, of course. And yeah, seeing other kids get a swimming pool, for example, in their backyard, one of those little 3 foot kind of jobs, a little tiny swimming pool or something. It was kind of like, wow, I really would have loved to have a swimming pool, but it wasn't a part of the plan. So it's like, well, you're not going to get a swimming pool, but you might get a couple new outfits for school in the fall of the year. And so yeah, it was pretty tough. So yeah, I think our family was unique in that regard, and trying to think for the long term.
Nice. And then so you go through school, high school, you get out. Did you end up going to college immediately after? You said it took you 6 years, but what was the timeline like there?
Yeah, I was fortunate. I did get to go straight away. Right after I graduated high school, I went to West Virginia University, which was only about 45 minutes from where I grew up in Pennsylvania. And my sister went there. I only applied to one school, West Virginia University, and it's because my sister was there. Again, I didn't have that luxury. I mean, it costs money to apply to colleges and universities, and it just seemed like, well, I didn't know much about them, but surely there'd be something I could find at WVU to study. And so yeah, I did. I went and I lived on campus and changed my major. I thought I was going to be an engineer until I took the math placement test.
Oh, yeah.
And they said, no, I don't think you have the math background to be an engineer. So I took some general ed classes and then found landscape architecture. And again, after my junior year in landscape architecture, I got a D in one of my classes, and I couldn't repeat that class until the following year. It was only offered once a year. So that set me back yet again. And so I just could have quit at any time and said, what am I doing here? I'm not college material, which those thoughts did go through my head. But ultimately, it's like, just keep going, just keep going. And after 6 years, I finished my undergrad degree and realized that I liked higher ed so much that I wanted to stay in some capacity, and then switched kind of fields, left landscape architecture behind, and moved into higher education leadership or higher education administration as a field.
Okay. And so if someone leaves primary school or high school or wherever they are in the world, whatever they call it, and they go to university or they go to college or they go to the career path, perseverance is something that it's the core of who we are. It's the character, it's the integrity, it doesn't matter what people say, it doesn't matter what's going on. This is the goal, this is the vision, this is where I'm heading. And then sticking to it, reverse engineering the plan and making it happen, right? So looking back now, what are the things that allowed you to be successful and not quit during that time period?
I think hope. They say hope springs eternal. Um, Faith, hope, and love, kind of abide. And I think that idea of hope was promised for the future. And my father would routinely say, plan your work and work your plan. It's a very simple kind of saying. And what he meant by that was, do things in small pieces, one at a time, and you'll eventually get there. So yeah, I guess it was just hope above hope that it would work out. And I guess as you see small things work out, then you look back and say, when I did that other thing, or I ran a race. So again, because we were poor, I wasn't allowed to be in school activities. Kids are in the band or basketball or whatever they might choose as a sport or activity. And I didn't do any of that. I wasn't allowed. We didn't have money to buy the uniforms or what have you. And so I would run. I lived in a rural area and I would just put on a pair of sneakers and run. And so that became the thing that I did. And I would run community races. I'm sure every community has a, fundraiser or race or run, in their area. And so there was one called the Mount Summit Challenge. And it literally was running up the side of a mountain in outside of Uniontown. And I registered for that and I won in my age group that race. And I wasn't on the track team. We didn't have one. I wasn't on the cross country team. We didn't have one of those either. But it's just, I would run on my own and trained, and that's how I got better. And so I think looking at that event and saying, well, wait a minute, if you stick with something, the results can pay off. So using those past examples to hopefully get to future performance was the hope that I needed to push on.
So you built off the fundamentals. You built off the victories you've seen, the landmarks. You built off that success. That's smart.
That's right. And I think all of us could do that as we look at our lives. And David, I'm sure you could too, thinking, how many podcasts have you done, before you did your first one, what did you do before that you've succeeded at and that you knew that this was going to be a success if you put your mind to it. And so I think that's something that we can all do is look at those past successes in our lives and remember that we'll move ahead and because we have been successful in the past.
Yeah, past victories. So the people out there who are like, man, I really want to do this, but it hasn't been going well. Like you want to get a college degree. It didn't go well. Your engineering test said you couldn't do it. Doesn't mean you can't, but the test said at that point you weren't ready. Then you go into landscape architecture and design. That wasn't going well.
No.
No. So what do you recommend to the people listening now? There's a fork in the road in your life at that point, and our lives every day, there's forks in the road. What's the fork difference? How do you discern, or how did you discern between endure or, hey, let's change course and try a different major or different career path?
I think it's looking at the ramifications of what if I didn't press on and get my degree? What were my options going to be? And my options at that point were perhaps having a pretty hefty student loan debt without a degree, which meant that I would have to work at a job that was perhaps more low paying than one that required a bachelor's degree. Moving back home into that coal mining community. I love my home. My mother still lives there and I go back every week and visit my mom. So it's not that I don't love where I came from, but I kind of wanted something more. And so I weighed those options. Do I want to move back home? And possibly work at a job that wouldn't provide me kind of that future that I hope for, or stick it out, even if it took me more time to get there. And, poverty is a powerful motivator for me. And so, and literally it was, poverty really motivates me and still does. The fear of like, wow, could I continue on and have that hope for a brighter future? So yeah, those were some of the forks in the road for me.
Nice. Okay. So now you go to college, takes you a little bit extra time to get the degree. Where does your life go from there, Lisa?
Well, I decided that I wasn't going to be a landscape architect. So again, delayed gratification. Well, I could stay on and get a master's degree in this thing called higher education leadership or higher education administration. What I found in those 6 years of being on campus and working, always had a job on campus and side jobs as well. But what I recognized is if I wanted to work in a higher education environment, I needed at least a master's degree. And so I stayed on at West Virginia University and got my master's degree. And at that time I had also met the man who would become my husband, and he was going off to Ohio State for his master's. And so we were separated, during that time, distance wise. But yeah, it was just going off our master's. And then we ended up at Michigan for his PhD. And after a couple of years of me working at the University of Michigan, I realized that I could maybe do a doctoral degree. And again, building on those past successes, I made it through an undergrad degree. I got a master's, and I ran some races along the way and was able to finish those. And I thought I'll probably be able to finish. And so I enrolled a couple years after my master's degree into a doctoral program at the University of Pittsburgh, and was able to finish in 2003. So yeah, it was like, I thought higher ed was kind of the field I wanted to be in, and had to get more education in order to be able to work in a higher ed institution. So yeah, that's what I did. Again, delayed gratification to eventually end up becoming a professor.
Yeah, it was, you had the vision, you reverse engineered the plan. This is what I need to do to get there. And then you worked it, but you didn't quit when adversity struck. And ladies and gentlemen, if you don't, connect in some ways, or maybe you're like, I know exactly what Lisa's talking about. We're from different cultures. We're from different backgrounds. We're from different literal countries. But nothing that Lisa's saying isn't universal. If building on your past successes, that's a biblical principle. That's a common sense principle, even if you're listening now and you don't believe in God yet. When you look back at the things you have achieved, it gives you the encouragement to know you can do the next one. And when you were talking, Lisa, I started chuckling at one point because I thought if it was easy, everybody would do it, right? If it was easy, everybody would do it. So that's the difference: is, are you like everybody, or are you going to be the best you can be, which is probably better than most people, Not that you're better or I'm better, but we've accomplished and achieved something greater. And because we put the effort in, we reap what we sow. So to the people right now that are listening to you, you have an expertise in leadership. For the people who have great value, but they don't see it in themselves, they don't see the victories because it's so easy, they take it for granted. I mean, how many of us do something and it's like, oh, it's not a big deal, and people are like, whoa, that was awesome, right? Or people are like, oh, that was nothing. You're like, I put a lot of work into that. So we have to be alone with God and have that hope that you spoke about. But for the people listening who have a goal, but maybe don't have a lot of encouragement and support around them, Lisa, what advice do you have for them to move forward in their life and achieve based on their past victories? Ladies and gentlemen, we had a small technical glitch. Lisa and I discussed if we should just, cut and paste. You never would have known the difference after post edit. However, we're talking about perseverance, right? We're talking about sticking to it. So did Lisa say, she's a leadership expert when the internet dropped? Did she quit? No. Did she say, let's postpone this? No, we got it worked out and now we're back. So Lisa, thank you for practicing what you preach.
Oh my gosh, David, that was a crazy time. And my neighbor just said, "Is your internet out?" She sent me a text message. I'm like, "Oh my gosh, I'm in the middle of a podcast. You're not going to believe this." So,
All right.
evidently it's not just me, but it's on my street that the internet went down.
All right. Well, let's go quick because we don't want to rely on anybody but God. So we are going to go back to the question. Right now, you have people all over the world, 130 plus countries, all different cultures, all different demographics, men, women, ladies, gentlemen, right? What advice do you have for them to look back in their lives, look for those successes, whether they feel they're small or huge? What's the process that you can walk them through to harness the power of past victories for future success?
Look for those small successes, and we all have them. Sometimes our minds will take us down a rabbit hole and tell us we're not worth it or we're not valuable enough, or we're imposters, or we can pick any number of words that to describe that feeling of inadequacy. But there are still some small victories. Claim those victories, and then success begets success. Keep building on those small victories. And before you know it, those smaller victories end up being middle-sized victories, and then they're really large victories. And I can say, I wrote a textbook with a co-author from California. She and I wrote one of the first textbooks on women in leadership. And it just is astounding to me, because people like me, first generation, low income college graduates from Appalachia who grew up next to a coal mine, don't usually write textbooks that are used in college. So I feel like as I looked back on those successes, those smaller victories, it allowed me to be able to have the wherewithal to actually do a big project like write a textbook. And same thing with running. Those smaller 5K races turned into a marathon, and I've run a marathon. And so it's building on those smaller successes one at a time.
Beautiful. And then today, where are you at today, Lisa? And where are you heading next? So you just helped our listeners, if they wanted to get in touch with you, continue the conversation, learn more, what's the best way to reach you? Where are you at today, and where are you headed next?
Well, thanks. It's DeFrank-Cole.com is my web address. And I am currently a professor of leadership at West Virginia University. It's a Research One land grant institution. And I enjoy giving back to people, to the institution that gave me so much, gave me my start in Appalachia. And I hope to continue the conversation with audiences outside of academia. Students kind of just show up to the classroom right now, and I don't have to do much to promote or do PR. But I think to kind of get this voice, or the knowledge about particularly women in leadership, which is my research area, to a broader audience, I need to do stuff like this. Do a podcast, reach a different type of audience, because I've seen a gap in the mainstream media and literature where there's just not enough scholars of women's leadership actually speaking about the subject. So I want to bring attention to women in leadership. And so I would love to speak at corporate events, leadership conferences and retreats, other things like that, where I can share research-based knowledge about women in leadership in, I hope, an approachable manner for audiences outside of academia. That's where I hope to go.
Beautiful, beautiful. So, ladies and gentlemen, we'll put a link in the show notes. And like Lisa said, her passion is with women in leadership, but the same fundamentals that work for women work for men, and vice versa. So if you're looking at your life and you're looking at the goal you have, you don't quit. You keep work, like her dad. I love that. I use that all the time. Plan the work the plan, right? You have the goal, you reverse engineer the plan, you commit to it. You make adjustments along the way, but most of it's just determination, grit, and hard work, right? Lisa, am I wrong? You're the expert on leadership there.
It does take a lot. Now, I will say sometimes things happen to people that's hard to overcome. But for most of us, yeah, it's the hard work and perseverance that pays off in the end.
Yeah. And then though, on that point, the people who have the worst situations, it's true, like 98 out of 100 times they quit, and people understand why. But when you're that 2% that doesn't quit, the David Coggins of the world, and men and women who just said, no, I've had enough, I'm going to keep fighting. Those are the people that really change the world. So hopefully, if you're listening, this is going to be a catalyst for you to love God more, know he loves you, and you're going to be used to change the world if you just don't quit. Literally just don't quit. Do you ever read about Ben Franklin, but more so Abraham Lincoln? Do you like Abraham Lincoln?
Of course. Who doesn't like Abraham Lincoln?
Well, actually, you know what? I think he's probably the greatest president. I got Washington, Reagan, Lincoln. But when I think about Lincoln, the guy failed and failed and failed and failed everything in his life. He died thinking the Gettysburg Address was his biggest failure. And it's studied around the world as one of the greatest speeches of all times, right? He wrote it on the train. And then he died. But yet that guy was used to God because he just kept persevering. And he didn't have a lot of support, especially within the home. So, so that is a great, to me, illustration of a human such as yourself, that you just keep pushing forward. You just keep pushing forward and you're making good decisions along the way. So I guess with that said, again, I'm being a little, I'm kind of moving things along faster just because I'm afraid the internet's going to cut. But any final thoughts, anything you want to share about your life, or any encouraging words to our listeners before we end the episode for today?
I would say that I'm a fan of Abraham Lincoln too, because it was under his leadership that the Morrill Act was passed, and that established the land grant university, land grant colleges and universities act, that allows us to have a land grant college in every state in the country. And I work at one. So I'm a big fan of Abraham Lincoln as well for that policy, and certainly many others. So thank you for the opportunity to share with your guests today a little hopeful inspiration story about a woman from Appalachia.
Yeah, and I'm thankful to have you here today, Lisa. And ladies and gentlemen, like Lisa said, like our slogan says, moreover, like God says, whether you believe the Bible or not, read it. You'll never find a flaw. It's all accurate. It lines up with the greatest business people in the world, because they're really stealing the concepts from the Bible. But don't just listen to great content. Do it. Do what you heard Lisa say that's good for you. Repeat it each day. Be consistent so you can have a great life in this world, but more importantly, in eternity to come. So I'm David Pasqualone. This is our remarkable friend, Lisa DeFrank-Cole. Lisa, thank you again for being here today.
My pleasure. Thanks, David.
Awesome. Ladies and gentlemen, check us out in another episode. Share this with your family and friends. Like us, rate us. You know what to do. You help us. It encourages us. It keeps us on the air. But another great thing is, don't forget to shop our sponsors like MyPillow.com. MyPillow.com, use promo code REMARKABLE. You get 30 to 80% off everything you order. Literally amazing stuff. I have a house full of it, not because they're my affiliate, but because I love it. And you're going to sleep better. You're going to save a ridiculous amount of money. You're going to help an American company. And then our podcast gets a piece of it. So we stay on the air to bring you great guests like Lisa and more. So enjoy. Go to mypillow.com, promo code REMARKABLE. And go to jasper.co. Get the best air filter for your house I've ever had. And so many more discounts are available using our promo code REMARKABLE, and you can find them on the website. But Lisa, hopefully you have a great, remarkable rest of the day. I can't wait to hear our listeners tell us that they picked you up for a speaking engagement and how it went. And I hope you have a fantastic day. Ciao.
The Remarkable People Podcast. Check it out. The Remarkable People Podcast. Listen, do, repeat. For life. The Remarkable People Podcast.